Do you want to know how faith can transform your life? Subscribe to the channel and like this video to follow stories of miracles, overcoming and experiences that will touch your heart. Don't miss it. My name is Magdalena Cortez. I was born in a small town in Mexico where since I was a child I was known for having a rebellious and curious character. My childhood was marked by the legends that grandmothers told about good and evil. Although my mother was a woman of faith, I always questioned everything. My adolescence took me down dark paths looking for answers in the wrong places. As an adult I became a powerful witch, but my life changed radically one night I will never forget. This is my testimony. I remember my childhood as a whirlwind of emotions. My mother, a devout Christian, used to read Bible verses to me every night. One of her favorites will be Psalms 91 verse 11. No evil will befall you, no plague will approach your tent. 11 For he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. 12 They will lift you up in their hands, so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. But I did not understand its meaning. While other children played outdoors I locked myself in the village library, devouring books of magical and forbidden stories. The elders said that my curiosity would lead me down a dangerous path, but I did not believe them. I did not yet know that they were right. When I turned 12 my father died suddenly. My mother cried inconsolably while repeating, God will give us the strength to overcome this pain, but I could not accept their comfort. In my young and rebellious mind, blaming God for my father's death was the most logical thing. From then on I moved away from prayers and began to explore the possibility that there were forces more powerful than those my mother mentioned. It was then that a neighbor told me about ancestral witchcraft, and how I could use it to control my destiny. During my adolescence I became an apprentice of the dark arts. My mentor, known as Doña Estela, a mysterious woman who claimed to have contact with the spirits of the other world. I learned to cast spells, read cards and light candles to invoke energies. While my friends dreamed of the future I sank deeper and deeper into a world full of shadows. My mother kept praying for me, but I made fun of her faith. Your prayers won't bring Dad back. She simply replied, God has a plan for you even if you don't understand it now. At age 20 I had already gained a reputation in town as the Witch Magdalena. People from all over came to find me to solve their problems of love, money, revenge. I felt like I had absolute control over my life, and that of others. However, something inside me was always restless. The nights were the worst. I dreamed of terrifying faces and screams that seemed to come from the same hell, but I ignored those signs thinking they were a product of my imagination. One night I received an invitation to participate in a special ritual with a group of experienced witches. The promise was to obtain unlimited power. Without hesitation I accepted the ritual that was carried out in a dark cave lit only by black candles. While we recited the chants I felt a shiver run through my body. Suddenly an invisible force dragged me into a dark abyss. I tried to scream but my voice was drowned. I knew at that moment that something had gone wrong. I opened my eyes and found myself in an indescribable place. It was hell. The heat was unbearable and the screams of tormented souls filled the air. Demons of grotesque shapes approached me ready to torture me. This is your destiny for playing with evil, they told me. I felt a fear that I had never experienced. In my despair I remembered my mother's words, God is always with you. For the first time in many years I cried out to God with all my soul. It was then that I heard a soft but powerful voice that said, Magdalene, it is not your time. You must go back and free others from these chains. The voice revealed to me 3 verses that I had to remember. Ephesians 6 verse 11 Put on the whole armor of God so that you can stand against the wiles of the evil ones. James 4 verse 7 Submit to God and resist him and he will flee from you. Psalms 23 verse 4 Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death I will fear no evil, for you are with me, your rod and your staff. I breathed. Suddenly I felt my body being thrown up. I woke up in the cave surrounded by the sorcerers who looked at me terrified. What did you see? They asked, but I could not speak. From that day everything changed. I abandoned witchcraft and began to seek God with a contrite heart. My mother cried with joy when she saw me enter the church for the first time in years. Over time I understood that my experience in hell was not only for my own salvation but to help others. I was a witch lost in my own choices and destiny led me to a place of deep suffering. I descended to hell and it was there that I began to understand the true depth of human pain and the strength of evil, but it was also in hell that I found the beginning of transformation. During this terrifying journey when all seemed lost, a divine light began to shine in the midst of the chaos. I heard words I never imagined, hearing verses that spoke directly to my heart. Those verses that I never imagined could reach me began to heal the wounds. I began to visit people who had fallen into the same traps that I prayed with them and I shared the verses that had saved me. Every time someone was freed I felt a peace that I had never experienced, but I also faced criticism. Many people did not believe my story and called me a false Christian. However, my faith in God was stronger than the words of the critics. Today my life is a living testimony of the transformation that only God can make. I know that there are those who doubt, but there are also those who find inspiration in my story. The verses that were revealed to me continued to be my spiritual weapon. If you are facing battles, I want to tell you that it is never too late to turn to God. He can transform even the most broken life. As my relationship with God grew, so did my ability to discern good from evil. I discovered that many who came to me were desperately seeking hope and deliverance. Every time I remembered the 3 verses that God revealed to me, I felt an inexplicable force. The first, he who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will abide under the shadow of the Almighty. Psalm 91 verse 1 reminded me that my refuge was in Him, but it would be enough to face what was coming. One night while I was praying, I heard footsteps outside my house. When I opened the door, I found a woman in tears. She told me that her daughter was possessed and the doctors could not help her. Upon entering her home, I felt a dark and oppressive presence. I remembered the second verse, submit yourselves to God and resist the devil and he will flee from you. James 4 verse 7. With faith I faced what was to come. The spiritual battle was intense. While I prayed for the girl, the demons screamed and threatened me. I felt fear but also a supernatural peace that could only come from God. I used the third verse because the weapons of our warfare are not carnal but powerful in God for the destruction of strongholds. 2 Corinthians 10 verse 4. At that moment the room was filled with light and the enemy had to flee. The liberation of the girl spread like fire in the town. Some called me saint while others critical, and the dissent said it was just luck or coincidence. However, I knew the truth was the power of God working through the verses that He revealed to me. This experience marked the beginning of my ministry to help others. With time, a group of people began to emerge. They wanted to learn about faith and Christian life. Every day I shared my testimony, talking about how God brought me out of the abyss and transformed my life. I reflected on the importance of resilience and how even in the darkest moments the light of God can shine. One night while I was sleeping, I had a disturbing dream. I saw a demon trying to regain control over the lives I had helped to free. I woke up with a racing heart, but I remembered that God had given me tools to fight. I decided to intensify my prayers and teach others to use the Word of God as a weapon. I organized a meeting in the town to talk about the 3 verses and how they can transform lives. The response was overwhelming. People from different communities came to listen and learn. I shared stories of miracles and conversion, inspiring hope and faith in the hearts of everyone. However, the challenges, it took a while for a group of critics to arrive. They began to spread rumors accusing me of using witchcraft without faith. Although those words hurt me, I remembered that my faithfulness was with God and not with men. Blessed are you when you are reviled and persecuted for my sake. Matthew 5 verse 11. My consolation was a young woman called Marisol. She came to me desperate and she confessed to me that she had been involved in dark rituals and now suffered nightly torments. When I heard her, I saw a version of my past reflected in her. Let us assure ourselves. I reflected on how God uses our experiences, even the darkest, to bring light and hope to others. His love and wisdom are infinite. The impact of Marisol's story brought more people in need of deliverance. One afternoon, a man named Istvan came to see me. He had been critical of my work but was now seeking help desperately. He said that a dark shadow had been chasing him since he participated in a ritual out of curiosity. I felt the urge to pray for him, knowing that the battle would be difficult. While praying for Esteban, the atmosphere in the room became heavy. I felt the direct attack of the demons trying to hold on to him, but I remembered the 3 verses and proclaimed them out loud. The deliverance was immediate and he fell to his knees crying and thanking God. It was a reminder of the incomparable power of the word. Esteban became a fervent believer. He began to attend the meetings and shared his testimony with others. His story touched hearts and led more people to seek help. I saw how God transformed the critic into a defender of the faith, and my confidence in his plan increased even more. However, the enemy did not give up. One night I dreamed of a dark figure. I woke up sweating but also with renewed determination. I reflected on how challenges are inevitable in the Christian life, but they are also an opportunity to demonstrate our faith. I decided to organize a spiritual retreat to teach people how to face spiritual attacks. During the retreat I shared the 3 verses and how to apply them in times of trial. The response was overwhelming and many testified to miracles and transformations during those days. At the retreat, I met a young woman named Sophia, who had lost all hope after the death of her mother. She was full of questions and doubts about God. I shared my testimony, explaining to her how even in the worst circumstances God always has a purpose. Sophia began to open her heart. Sophia experienced a personal miracle. During the retreat, in a prayer session, she felt a peace she had not felt in years. Her face reflected hope and renewal. I realized that each soul rescued is a victory in the spiritual battle we face daily. Back in the village, the opposition increased. A group of people tried to close our meetings, arguing that they caused divisions. Although it was a hard blow, I relied on the promises of God and on the people who had found transformation. I knew that the fight was worth it. In the midst of the difficulties, a local pastor joined our effort. Together we began to disciple the new believers and strengthen their faith. The pastor shared a verse that resonated deeply with me: but thanks to God who gives us victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. 1 Corinthians 15 verse 57. Looking back, I see how God used my dark past to light the way of others. Every deliverance, every conversion and every miracle is a testimony of His love and power. Although the challenges continue now, I understand that every obstacle is an opportunity to glorify His name, and so my journey continues, trusting fully in the divine plan that rescued me from hell, to be a tool of hope and salvation. Life is a journey full of mysteries and challenges. Sometimes we find ourselves at a point where darkness seems to dominate and the shadows of our mistakes, fears and sufferings invade our minds and hearts. But you must know that even in the darkest moments there is always a light waiting to shine. That light often comes from unexpected places and can be found in the deepest and the most transforming experiences that life offers us. I am proof that even in the most difficult moments we can find redemption. I was a woman who lived in a world of darkness, trapped in fear and sin, not knowing which path to follow. Jesus gave me a new direction. What I learned in that place is something I want to share.